Hi. As per GST law, there is a clause of composition scheme that is applicable to persons who has aggregate turnover below 50 lakhs. A rate of 1% is prescribed as per the model GST law, and 1% or such notified tax rate will be applicable to the taxable persons who has opted composition scheme. If a taxable person is opted for the composition scheme, he cannot issue a tax invoice because he cannot collect tax from his customers. Main condition to get the composition scheme is that the aggregate turnover in a financial year should not be more than 50 lakhs. That is, the threshold limit is 50 lakhs. The aggregate turnover is defined as per section 2 subsection 6 of the GST Act. The aggregate turnover include all taxable or non-taxable supplies, exempt supplies and exports. It excludes any GST, that is goods and services tax paid, that may be SGST, CGST or IGST. It also excludes inward supplies or taxable inward supplies under the reverse charge mechanism. There are certain conditions to be fulfilled by the person who is opting for composition scheme. Let us look into these conditions. If a person has more than one vertical, business vertical, and he is looking for composition scheme for only one vertical and not for others, it cannot be done. That is, for a person who has more than one business vertical, he has to opt composition scheme for all verticals undertaken by him. He cannot opt composition scheme for only one vertical. The second condition is that the person who is opting for composition scheme should not do interstate supplies. That is, for availing the composition scheme, the person should do only intrastate supply, that is within the state. The next condition is that the person cannot avail input tax credit on purchase of goods or services. That is, when he is buying input goods or services, he cannot claim, he cannot set off the tax paid on the purchase of such goods or services. The next condition is that the person who is buying goods or services from a taxable person who has opted composition scheme cannot avail input tax credit. That is, if a buyer is buying goods or services from a person who is opted composition scheme, the composition scheme seller cannot issue a tax invoice to the buyer. So, of course, the buyer cannot avail any input tax credit on such purchase of goods or services. There is a penalty for any person who violates the rules under composition scheme. That is, if a person is ineligible and he has availed the composition scheme, in such a situation, he has to pay tax, interest and amount equivalent to the tax amount as penalty. So, hope you have understood the composition scheme, the conditions and the penalty applicable if he is ineligible and avail the composition scheme. Thank you.